I'm not quite sure where this paper came from. I know who made it. It was made by the K&E company, semi-logarithmic paper, 4 cycles times 150 divisions. It's one of those things where logarithmic. Look, I can make my own slide rule out of this. Let's just do that. For those of you that don't know slide rules, I'm sorry about that. You should, because you should. Let's see if it works. Let's see if I think it'll work. Let's see if it does. It would be handy if I could cut a piece of paper straighter than I'm cutting it. Okay, so here's the top slider. Let's just make it look like and we'll compare it with an actual slide rule, which I have somewhere here. My life is in any sort of order. Okay, where the hell is it? No, I have a bunch of slide rules here. Hell with it. You're just going to have to take my word for it. So, let's see. The A scale and the B scale. 1. Yep, it does. So this, if you know how ones work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you take your slide rule and you move the 1 over the 2 mark, then the 2 is over the 4, the 3 is over the 6, the 4 is over the, and if you, so this is a slide rule. A slide rule. Okay, so anyway, I got this paper. I don't know from where, but this paper is really, really good for fountain pens. So when I go to a pen show, in addition to my usual vintage ledger book paper, I sometimes have a pile of this stuff. Another thing that's nice about this is when I'm drawing on it and filming it with this camera or whatever, all of these little lines are what the camera focuses on, which also happens to be the lines I'm drawing with. So that's kind of handy. All of these lines help the camera focus. And what is someone saying here? Levin, Levin is back again. Hello, Levin. So Levin, why don't you ask me questions? You ask me questions that some people that ask peer questions. Stump the peer. Make sure it's a question I know the answer to. Anyway, this paper is lovely. There are certain papers that are really, really fun to draw on, to write on, and Bristol boards are great. Sometimes I'm in a watercolor texture kind of paper mood, but this particular paper I just was discovered yesterday as I was looking for something and realized I had a pile of this somewhere. This could have come from the Magic Dumpster. What is the Magic Dumpster, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Next door to me, there's a storage facility. It's like the things that you see on the side of roads, usually highways that are near a city, but not they're not going to build a Toys R Us on it or something. It's cheaper land to build and to rent, and that's where they put the you store it yourself places. Well, this building where this paper came from was used by companies in Cambridge, in Massachusetts, Boston, Allsafe Archives, and these were facilities that would keep records and other equipment that you couldn't throw out. The company couldn't throw them out. Even if they were obsolete, the records weren't needed anymore. They had to keep them for 5 years or something until they could dispose of them. And there were boxes of stuff, so they don't want them lugging, clogging up their life. So they would rent it from Allsafe Archives. So every other month or so, there would be this dumpster outside the loading dock of this building. Big dumpster, full of stuff. And whenever we saw the Magic Dumpster, artists from my building and other people would climb into this thing and grab stuff because it was really, really cool. There would also be people from trash pickers there looking for stuff. That one of the people that rented at this place was Draper Labs. And they were in Cambridge, and they worked for the Department of Defense, the Department of War, they call it now. I call it Department of War. Can't do my Trump thing right this morning, but anyway, the Department of War. And they also did stuff they created mechanical elements of rocket ships and stuff that NASA would buy. So anyway, at the end, when they didn't need to store this stuff anymore, they'd throw it in Draper Labs. So you had some people there looking only for aluminum. There was lots of stuff made of aluminum. There were things made of stainless steel, and there were things that, scrap metal that was really good. But they also had lots of paper, including this. But one of the things that was sort of fun was one guy was in there looking for 3-ring binders. And 3-ring binders are those binders that look like this when they're open. They've got 3 rings. And he wanted the binders. He didn't care about all of the paperwork that was in there, so he'd open them up, throw the paperwork in the bottom of the dumpster, and then take all of these binders. Well, I looked at what one of the binders were. He just wanted them as a binder. But on the cover of the binder, it said, "Launch codes for Trident Missile Systems, Department of Defense." The stuff inside there, that would have been worth millions of dollars to those Ruskies during the Cold War. So anyway, this is where the Magic Dumpster came from. So Levin asked me a question. Let's see what it is. Okay, he asked me, what are some of your influences regarding visual artistry besides Saul Steinberg? Maybe your love of calligraphy. Well, my dad and my mom both were very artistic, and my dad is a very good sketcher. He had very interesting handwriting. He was a painter and a drawer, and later in life he made ceramics and jewelry. I knew something was missing. Ceramics and jewelry. I can show you some of his jewelry. I got it right next to me here. And my mother was painted and drew, sketched, and she also did calligraphy for the local Lutheran church. And the calligraphy that she used was either sort of Old English or Chancery script. So that was, sort of this, I don't know how she did it. Anyway, with not a pointed pen, but with an edged pen. And so I got interested in lettering through a book that my father had, and I have a copy of that book. I don't know if I have the actual book, but it was a Dover edition of early advertising art. And there was one that was illustrations and one that was lettering. And the lettering had lots of different examples of lettering that were used, throughout time, but were very popular in the early 1900s or late 1800s, where decoration and ooh la la was important. So I learned, the love of lettering from that book. Let me see if I can find that book. So I'll be right back. See if I can climb out of this thing, and also bring back up some jewelry that my father did. So one of the things my father did when he owned a clothing store or two, and up at our lake home, he was walking along the beach and found a feather and a fishing lure and a twig and some fishing line, and another bone of another fish. And he was just walking and sort of tying them together and he made this little tiny collage of the stuff he found on the beach. And he put it in a display of jewelry in his store. So there was, this ring and this necklace and a brooch and my dad's gob, and then a ring and another ring and some earrings. Anyway, some customer came in and wasn't interested in any of the jewelry. She wanted to buy this thing. And she was a jeweler herself. She met my father. She was a jeweler herself. And she said, well, Wells, Mr. Gustaf said you should make some of these things. So here's a necklace my father made. I'll start with the back. This is what would be in the back of your neck, and it would come down, and then your one boob is here, the other boob is here, and here's the prehistoric looking gob, and here's a twig, and this string is waxed linen, so it's really quite lovely to work with, but if you get it wet, it can sort of dissolve, or the wax comes off. Anyway, so here's this piece he made. What do you think? He had other pieces that were, then he started making these things and selling them at his store and at other stores. He sold them through the museum in Minnesota. He had some here in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, I think. And he sold a number of necklaces to people in my building. But anyway, he was very artistic. My mother was very artistic. Here's the book, the lettering book. Let me see what you just wrote here. That's amazing. Yes. Let me see if I can find another necklace or two. So here's Handbook of Early Advertising. So this is not the book that my father had. My father's signature would have been here. But these are circumscribed happiness amidst tribulation. I thought this said circumcised for a second, but my mind is in the gutter. But I would look at all these different ways of making letters, script and Old English and stuff, and all these different typefaces here. Oops, someone tore this page out. The one my father used also had something torn out, and he used it for it was a drawing of a sort of an American eagle on a square thing that had a name on it, and he just put the name of his store on it, so that was something he used. This company, the Dover Publications, this company that makes these books, these are all things that you can have for free. It's all copyright free. So a lot of people used this stuff for their businesses. I remember there was one card here. Let's see if I can find it. It was very one of the things I also like about typeface things, these words were used in type manuals, and they would have things that you might accidentally see, as a title of a piece in the newspaper or a title of a book. So you can see sort of a big words and little words and all caps and bottom. So Winsome, handsome babyhood. Patriarch honored grandam. Redeeming promises in the world's currency. National Bank of Performance. Laughed at by plain folks, strutting pomposity. One of them was blah, 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 dealers in miniature pyramids, I remember. So these are fun things to see. Leaves from the notebooks of a naturalist. Good counsel is above price. So anyway, this was a very, look, homogeneous nobleman, Caucasian, Ethiopian, and Mongolian. Astronomical bombardment, 4th of July pyrotechnical displays. Anyway, these are fun. Okay, let me find some other necklaces of my dad's. Look at this one. Okay, I found a gob. So when my father died, of course, he wasn't going to make any more of these. So, and a lot of them he made that were priced, and we kept those in a box, a large box. There's some that he never finished. There's some that I kept that were complete, and they cracked me up. I bought them from him. This is one that I really, really love. It's very simple. This is the black linen thread with knots every once in a while. And it comes down to the thing spreads out into little pieces, and these are little bits of black coral. And then he has a piece of black suede wrapped around, and then there's a little zirconium ring with a little heart on it. And it reminded me of like a piece of diamond in a piece of coal. And then my dad made these little tiny these little tiny brass things that say Gustafson. So that was how he would sign these. So each one of his necklaces should have one of those on it. So there's that one. Here's another one he made. And I don't know what these beads are, but he would go to New York and he'd buy all sorts of beads and teeth and bones. And this one, I just like the sound it makes. I can imagine wearing this at an opera or the theater, and everyone would be shushing me. But I can't help but play with this. I proved by geometric logic that a duplicate key existed. Levin, you probably don't know that line I'm quoting. I bet Todd Merrill wood. This is one that I also bought. I used to wear this at Christmas, and I would say that this is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer's antler. So it's sort of like these fingers holding this bead, and I wear that one. And this is a little bit more butch. These are just washers and nuts and bolts. Nuts, I guess. Nuts and washers. I wear that when I'm feeling butch. This one, Cinnabar and Bone. He's $84 he was asking for this. Here's his little tag right there. This is one of the rare necklaces that he made that actually looked kind of like a necklace all the way along. Was made of just one kind of thing. Most of the time what he would make are the big gobs at the bottom. And this is a fun one to wear. It's just this big gob of gold. I sometimes put this on at Christmas. Okay, what did you ask me? Well, it certainly is pretty. Normally when you think of jewelry, you think of something pretty and shiny and valuable. Gold, silver, pearls, diamonds, all of these things is what jewelry is supposed to look like. But back in the caveman days, a bone around your neck or through your nose or however is what you would use to make jewelry. So my father went back into that thing, that sort of era. So that's sort of where I get my collage aspect. So let me show you what I did with my dad had a bunch of jewelry parts, jewelry that he started but never finished. Started and never finished. So I thought, well, how am I going to, I don't want to finish it for him, and I don't want to throw it away or untie what he started and then sell the individual beads. And we have millions of individual beads to sell one day. But anyway, so what I did, I found a medicine ball, which is, I'll show you in a second. A medicine ball is a little smaller than a basketball or a soccer ball, but it's heavy. It's filled with sand or something, I don't know what. So it's you're supposed to throw it back and forth with other people, and you're supposed to get muscles that way. I don't think I have one muscle in my entire body. I'm the weakest person on the planet. So what I did was I took the ball and I covered it with pieces of leather and suede. And I took my dad's necklaces that he had started but never finished. And I sort of wrapped them around, like this is a really fun looking necklace right here. This little bit would have made a really neat necklace. But what I did is I just decided to create a little globe. And I wanted to actually use a lot more stuff, but I sort of ran out, and rather than going back or having my brothers ship more to me, I just left it at this. And then I had this hanging in the gallery, suspended from the ceiling. And it's in the corner of a gallery. Okay, why are we having problems? Suspended in the corner of the gallery at about eye level for me. And I think I called the label on the wall said asteroid or something. And subsequent to that, making that piece you just saw, I collected a bunch of little balls, golf ball to softball size. And I used other necklaces that he started but never finished, along with other just beads. And I created this beautiful assortment of, I have about 24 of them. And they're at the cabin at our lake home. And they're just, I call them my little asteroids. And they're just hanging above my bed or above a window. And they just make me smile. There's one that's sort of made of a lot of orange beads, one that's made of black and white. I've got two. There were two spheres that I think we had in our house. And when we were going through all of our stuff to sell the contents of our house, I saw these two things. They were brass and they were hollow and they had little holes at the top. And this one had more little holes. And they were salt and pepper shakers. So I took both of these balls and I wrapped them in, one has black thread with little black beads, and that's the pepper. And then the other one had white or the tan color string with little pearls and white colored beads on it. So that's a pair of asteroids, and they're hanging together in my room. So as I'm making these things, I'm channeling my father's collage making art, perhaps, and remembering him and having conversations with him that I never had when he was alive, which I wish I would have had, but I was afraid to have those conversations. I'll tell you about them, but not in public, Levin, if you want to know. But anyway, it's fun to do stuff with a lot of the stuff that my father had left us, art that he started. My mother left, she though she was a drawer and a painter, she didn't really have time to do that. She made dolls and quilts and stuff with fabric. And I'm making art out of what remains of some of the quilts that she did make for people in the family, but we had dogs and there was some water damage on some. A lot of them were up at the lake and mice got at some. So I'm going to create a object using the quilts that she had made that did not survive as quilts. So I'm going to cut those up and make a collage out of them. So that's my plan. Let's see what you wrote now here. Un-American. Okay, that's where we left off. Another thing my father did, and I don't know if I can find them right now, but I'll try to find them for another thing. He would read the newspaper every morning, and he would usually, as he was listening to the news or watching the news or having his coffee, he would doodle. Here's the headlines of the article, let's say. Blah died. And often his doodles had to do with the title of the article, but he would then make these great designs just starting with these letters, and it would sometimes go the entire page with these, or half a page with these headlines. And I asked him, I said, can you please save those for me? So the next time I went back to Minneapolis, there was this big envelope full of these things. And I have a big pile of those here. I have some here, and I have some at the cabin. And I want to make a collage of those as well. And he was always drawing. He was always doodling, always drawing. He also, let me see if I can find. Maybe I can find images of him on my Facebook page. Okay, here's a drawing my dad did during the time he was making ceramics, and this looks like a vase wrapped in fabric, but he actually made all of this out of ceramics. Here's another one. So these are drawings he did of other vases. This one, he wanted the pieces of clay to be put together like they were stitched. So, he would make the stitching and the stuff out of out of clay as well. I'm trying to go back. I don't know how do I go back in this thing? I hate that. Why can't, I don't want to write a comment. How do you search on Facebook? Fuck! These are the flowers that my flower arrangement my brother made for my dad's casket. My dad was born on the 4th of July, so my brother bought red, white, and blue flowers. That's me. That's me. I don't know why this is showing. Here's my dad when he was in Korea. He's the gun that he was able to carry as his sidearm was a gun that his stepfather got in World War II from a German officer. It's a Luger. So my father got to wear that in Korea for some reason. Okay, why isn't Wells Gustafson showing up here? There's my dad, one point in his life. God, I used to be young once upon a time. This isn't working. Let's see, do I have pictures here? See those. I have so many of these devices and I forget which device has which pictures on them. And I guess this one is not the one that has. Oh, actually, here's a picture. Here's a drawing my dad did when he was in high school. And this was an ad that he designed for a class in high school, art class, I guess. Charm your home with furnishings from Powers, Minneapolis. And this chair and this desk and that lamp belong to us, and we still have them there. And I didn't realize that this thing existed until after he had died, but I want to know where that pen is. Where did that pen go, Dad? So here's a picture at the cabin. Here's the chair, here's the lamp, here's the desk. And we have the picture that he drew hanging on the wall next to that. I don't know where the other pictures are. Anyway, so your original question was what artistic influence I have. A lot of it comes from my father, more than my mother, I think. Though the original connection with lettering came from my mother. So had my mother done that calligraphy, I probably would never have been interested in calligraphy. But in terms of the aesthetic of collage and adding more and more and more and collecting stuff and making art out of the stuff, that's more my father. from my father's stuff. Carson. The pinup dolls was my favorite. I don't remember the pinup dolls. Is that my thing or something my father did? Oh, yes, my father. Yes, my father, when he was in Korea, he made for his fellow soldiers, he made illustrations that were very much like the drawings of Vargas, who was famous for his pinup girls that he would draw, women with big boobs and often slightly suggestive looks or poses. And my father would make those things. We don't have any of those originals. We just have little pictures he took with his camera. So Carson and Levin, this is Ask Peer Anything Day. I'll try to answer as honestly as I can. Ask any question you want. My social security number is blah, 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 blah. Do I need to write that down? Just going to see if I can find. My father still has his Facebook profile, though I don't understand. I guess these are things that also include him being tagged. Here's my dad. He's about to sing a song. This is about I don't know, half a year before he died. And let me just see if I can find. Here my dad is when he was quite a bit younger, as you can tell. Oh my God. Here's Donald Trump in Studio 54 in New York. My father would go to this Studio 54, and there's Donald Trump back when he was grabbing pussy. So my dad also drew. He loved going to the theater, and the Minneapolis or the Bloomington, Minnesota regional theater would put on shows, and my father would go there during rehearsals, and he would draw the actresses and actors. That was from Sweet Charity. Come on. Okay, here's some of my dad's necklaces. Again. Here's two more that he made. There's what I looked like in college. You don't have to see that anymore. Some more necklaces that my dad made. He loved using turquoise. There's another necklace. Here's just a little leaf and two leaves, I guess, that he would make in watercolor. Here I am. 2012. Here I am. So my dad would also watch TV. So 60 Minutes is a TV show on Sundays, and I don't know who this person was, but he would draw the characters on the news. So he'd just sit there, listen to the news, and he would draw the faces of the various people. This is on Piers Morgan, and I think these were people that wanted to be president, maybe. Here's another drawing he did of a naked lady, I guess. He loved doing little abstract things. Look at me, seductive me. Yeah, right. Oh, another beautiful drawing of knots. I gave my dad at an antique shop, I found a big box of knots, and it was a Boy Scout merit badge thing. If you learned how to tie knots, you would, get your little merit badge for knots. And this was some Boy Scouts merit badge project. And so this huge gob of knots I bought and gave it to him. So here's another one of the drawings he did of that. Little watercolor drawing. More necklaces. Here's rehearsal sketch for, I think this was for Guys and Dolls or something. Here's on Piers Morgan, this Michael Moore, filmmaker, 2011. So this, anyway, he made many political films, and another detail of my dad's necklaces. My dad is one of the few people I know that actually likes clowns. They creep me out. But this is, for some reason, a drawing he did of a clown. This is another necklace made with snake vertebra bones and a piece of ivory. This is a picture I took of my dad. My mother had just died. We were going back to the lake from her funeral. Okay. Memory lane. Levin, you still there? Carson, you still there? Okay. For the dining table thing. Okay. Well, he would be an interesting person. Just make sure there's lots of wine. He liked his wine. My parents did drink more than they should have. And anyway, yes. Well, you make coffee. I'm going to go grab another thing of coffee myself. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. I did find a photograph of some of my dad's lettering on newspapers, but I'll wait for 11 to return before I show that. So anyway, I do get my love of always drawing from my father. My father always had a pen in his hand, was always drawing. And here I'm drawing his necklaces. So Carson, another question from you. The images that I'm going to show you of the newspapers were so here's his here's what he would do to newspaper headlines. Mega payday for something, and these letters he just turned into the sort of Art Deco gob. Another Art Deco thing here. I don't know what this headline said, but he turned that into Hecker, glad to be here, is what it originally had said for some reason. He loved the sports, so there's a lot of, he would read the sports pages, so a lot of the sports ones were decorated. So 11 asked, what about your dad's pens of choice, may I ask? Just what was available, I suppose. It was just what was available. I did give him some fountain pens for Christmas or something, and he loved using them, but he never kept them filled or kept them with him. When he was in Korea, we have lots of beautiful drawings he did using India ink and crow quill pens. Some beautiful shaded lines he could get by pressure, but those were dip pens. They weren't fountain pens. I think he was really good with a ballpoint pen. He would do drawings without ever taking the pen off the paper. He would just do a drawing where he might be drawing a figure at a restaurant. Ear, tie, wine glass. And he'd go over here, maybe the chair in the background, maybe another table over here. He would just never lift his hand off the page, but he knew how to not apply pressure. So a lot of the drawings he did, you don't see where how the line continues, because even with a ballpoint pen, he was able to use the idea of a very light touch to his advantage. I'm able to draw with a ballpoint pen and make it look somewhat like a fountain pen. I am able to apply pressure and get a thicker line, but I also know how to just let the pen make a line too. But it was a ballpoint. He liked pencils, ballpoints. He wasn't really a marker fan. He would use a big black magic marker for some signs he would make, but for drawing or doodling, it was usually a ballpoint pen. pens I gave him and gave my mother, I have back now somewhere. I'm not really attached to them because they never really used them. Thank you very much, Pierre. Very pretty. And then they'd put them in the drawer and use their ballpoints. So, but when I would bring him a pen and say, Dad, try this pen out, Mom, try this one out, they would enjoy writing with them. But I think they had other things on their mind rather than what pen am I going to use. I just used whatever was right there. Any other questions? Now, Levin, I know that we're planning on talking this weekend on Saturday, I think you said. I am looking forward to it, where we can talk about the pens you want personally, and we can also talk about the art we make and the art you make and things like that. So I am looking forward to that, and I'm sure we will enjoy that conversation. Carson, you've never been a guest on my show, and I've asked you a couple of times when you comment on my YouTube channel, you make comments, I say, well, send me an email, because you sound like you want to buy something. And the only way that I can answer that is with an email. I can't do it by conducting business via YouTube commentary. So send me an email. My email is easy to find through my website or whatever. I'm trying to think of other artistic influence. I am influenced by many artists to a degree or another. I used to like Turner a lot. I used to love drawing ships. That was my go-to thing to draw, boats and ships, ocean liners and stuff. And I look back at those drawings now, and the drawings that I framed when I was in high school, and they're up at the cabin, and I keep them there just because they were an important part of my life at the time. But I look at them, the drawings now, and think, how did I get stuck in this rut? It's not at all interesting to me. I still love ships, and I love drawing them, doodling them more than draw them, where I'll have more fun drawing a boat than I did back then. I would be cross-hatch. I would draw every little line, every little, rigging detail, all the little portholes, and I'm looking at that stuff now and said, how did I possibly have that much patience? My friends were all out dating girls. Maybe that's why I drew ships, to avoid dating girls, because that wasn't in my makeup to be interested in girls. So maybe that's why I was so interested in drawing detailed pictures of boats, to keep my mind off of other things. Now you're learning more about me than maybe you wanted to learn, but anyway, I don't care. I did buy recently on eBay, I bought a bunch of charts, naval charts. They're about 3 by 4 feet. And they, the big map of, some part of the Atlantic Ocean with maybe, or the English Channel or something. And with all of the markings and the depth markings and stuff on these charts. And some of them are used. They've got pencil lines where the ship was navigating through the treacherous strait of whatever it was. And I thought I would do, with this sort of writing, this sort of drawing, fun and goofy, I would draw the Battle of Jutland. So I'd have the German boats here and the British boats here and the bombs going back and forth and this one exploding. I thought that would be sort of fun, and I still plan on doing it. Maybe I should do one for this upcoming Open Studios. So maybe that's what I'll do. Let's see. Ships to how these trying to cross something that isn't man-made. Yes. How do we get across that ocean? There's a book that I grew up with as a kid, and that book, the original is in Minnesota. I bought a second copy on eBay that I have here that looks like no one ever used it. The one that I have at the cabin, the pages are all taped together with yellowed tape. I would just copy the ships from that book over and over and over again and just look through that book, and it's just so worn out. The binding is broken, and the book shows a lot of love. And so I bought a copy of it so I could have it here. And it's all brand new, and well, it's from 1963, I think. But it's, in fact, I'll show you the book. Again, it's a book that was an important part of my artistic career, I guess, because I copied pictures from it. It's called The Ship by Bjorn Landstrom. And what I liked about this book was the Bjorn was really a good artist and was very creative in how he put things together. I think it's 1963 or 64. 1961 is when that was done. Okay, where's the copyright page? I guess we don't have it. This naked man on a log. But beautifully drawn. You know, he copied images from the 1600s or whenever, 1400s. Then he would make these roadkill diagrams. But what was really fun about how he would draw is he sometimes would be very clever about how he would illustrate or compose the pictures on the page. It was way more interesting than how other people would have done it. There's so many different styles of drawing. I love the ones here where, you know, the bottom of the boat goes off the page because that's where the water line would be. Anyway, this is bringing back lots of memories. Just completely different styles. He doesn't have to follow one routine, and I thought that was so clever of him. So anyway, the book, in that same book in Minneapolis, or at the lake at the cabin, is just completely falling apart. My father's signature is on the front with 1963 maybe on it. That's why I'm remembering 1963, but it might be 1961. Do you have that book, Levin? Send me a picture of you sitting in the slums watching alcoholics. I'd love to see that. This pen is really, really nice. I like that I can flip this over and it's a Waterman. I normally wouldn't do this with a Waterman, but this Waterman is really good with being on the underside. But this is the sort of cross-hatching I would do in high school, except I would use a Rapidograph technical pen, 00 or 000, and I'd do the cross-hatching this way, and then I would do it this way. And I don't draw that way anymore, thank goodness. Oh, Gojo is here, whoever Gojo is. Subscribed and liked. So maybe what I'll do is I'll find one of those maps and do some doodle drawings of World War I era battleships having a clusterfuck in the middle of the North Sea. Oh! My life. Hate my life. My iPad. Here's my desk in perspective. Here's a thing that would normally hold a desk lamp. This is clamped to my desk. I've taken the desk lamp off and I have a metal thing here on which is balanced my iPad, just balanced there. So if I bump the table, this moves and this jiggles and that falls. So that's what just happened. Gravity functioning in my house. Well, here's a 51 right here. And this is and this is actually 51 special, so it's a non-gold nibbed one, but this has the kind of 51 nib that I really like. I like the fat line it makes this side and the thin line that it makes on that side. And this particular one has a great change between the two of them. Now I do have other 51s on the table, not this table, but on another table, that might have ink in them. And I do use them. I use them if I want to make a list of what I have to do today. Because normally when I have a 51 in my hand, I don't doodle. I think of what I need to do. But they are sometimes fun to doodle with. I just make lots of little, well, I don't always, but sometimes I make lots of little straight lines, parallel straight lines. I can't help it. This pen makes me do it. Can I make a curved line? Yeah, but it doesn't look all that interesting. This is for drawing straight lines. This is what I use. Oh, 11. You can ask one more question, and then I'm going to try to put my dad's jewelry back. Try to put it back where I found it. Just don't leave them here. 11, you can have one more question. You should get if you don't have a 51, you should get one just to see if you have the same experience with it as I do. Don't wait till Sunday. Well, ask one more now, just because I have a few minutes when I put these things back. Get them untangled. They're already tangled. It's one of the things about my dad would, all around the house, he would have a little basket or maybe a little bowl, cereal bowl, salad dish, filled with beads and maybe the start of 2 necklaces. It seemed like he never just made one at a time. He was always making many at a time. And that's going to hang. So when it came time to try to figure out how to sort all this stuff out in drawers in the studio, there were just gobs of these things, and they were all just in a heap. Lots of different heaps. So I spent hours just going through them and trying to untangle them. And that was fun. But anyway, so that's how it went. Okay, Levin, let's see, did you ask me another question or what? If I had my choice and was not lazy, I would probably have milk and sugar in every cup of coffee. But sometimes I don't have sugar and sometimes I don't have milk. So I drink it any way I can get it. And I don't, it doesn't, it, I don't, doesn't have to be a particular brand. It doesn't, it's just something to shove down my throat in the morning and sort of help me wake up. My nephew, he's a scientist when it comes to coffee. He measures exactly, has a stopwatch, puts it on, put water on, and does everything as if he's making a very complicated chemical. I'm not that way. So, ever. I don't think I've done that. I have dipped pens in coffee a lot, thinking it was my ink water, but never that. Anyway, Levin, it was good seeing you. Nice seeing you, Carson. Nice seeing anyone else that's watching. I now have to, now that I have these necklaces all ready, shit, I hid them already until I just jiggled and they all tangled up again. I'm going to put these away and then I'm going to continue to put away other stuff. So be good, everyone.